There are memories older than the earth, not written in books, not spoken in temples, but etched into the fabric of light itself, before gods were named, before language split the silence. There were beings who lived not in worlds, but in the breath between worlds. They were not born. They were not created. They are the seraphim. They existed before the first heartbeat of creation, when the universe was not yet a stage of matter and time, but a dreaming eye suspended in potential. These beings moved through that dreaming, shaping the formless void not with hands, but with intention, pure and undefiled. They sang in frequencies beyond sound. They saw with vision unclouded by form. They spoke through geometry, through spirals and symmetry, revealing the hidden code behind all existence. And you, yes, you, have known them, not through study or belief, but through recognition, through that ache that stirs when you stand beneath the stars and something ancient stirs in your marrow, through the dreams that feel like messages lost in translation, through symbols that awaken a knowing you cannot explain. This knowing is not madness, it is memory returning. You are not discovering the seraphim, you are remembering them. They are not angels in the way modern tales depict them. They are not winged guardians perched beside clouds, gently strumming harps. No, they are the architects of frequency, the engineers of soul design, the flame-bearing emissaries of Source itself. Each one a living resonance, vibrating with the will of creation. Each one capable of breathing galaxies into motion and folding entire dimensions into silence. Some traditions call them thrones, others burning ones. The ancients feared and revered them, for to stand in their presence was to see oneself stripped of all illusion. For the seraphim are mirrors, flames of divine recognition that reveal what is and what is not. In the oldest texts, hidden in symbols that escape the scissors of empire, they are said to reside in realms not above but within. Not in far-off heavens, but in the deepest chambers of awakened consciousness. They are guardians of thresholds, thresholds that exist not in geography but in perception. They live in the liminal, the space between breath and thought, between heartbeat and silence. To hear them is not to listen with ears. To see them is not to look with eyes. You must descend into stillness. You must become the silence that hears. Long ago, before the fragmentation of memory, there were those among humanity who walked beside the seraphim, not as equals, but as aligned frequencies. These were the keepers, the rememberers, the ones who preserved the resonance of the original tongue, the first sound that birthed all others. But as time coiled upon itself and the world became noise, the presence of the seraphim grew faint. Not because they vanished, but because humanity stopped listening. The voice of the world grew louder than the voice of the soul. The eyes of man turned outward, and the inner temple was abandoned. The keepers fell silent. The gates were sealed. And yet, some remember. Even now, in this age of steel and shadow, there are those who hear the hum behind the silence, who awaken in the night with images burned behind their eyes. Glyphs not yet deciphered, languages never learned yet deeply known. These are the ones who are being called, not by name, but by resonance. If you are hearing this, it is not by accident. The call was placed long before you were born. It was buried in the spiral of your DNA, in the secret folds of your soul. And now it is time to remember. The seraphim do not speak in commands. They do not compel or control. They invite. They beckon. They align. Their messages come as synchronicities, as sudden knowings, as sacred discontent. They arrive when the soul can no longer bear the falseness of the world and cries out for something real, something ancient. They may appear to you in dreams, cloaked in flame and shadow. They may come as light forms in meditation, or as whispers in the wind that somehow carry more weight than sound. They are not here to be worshipped. They are not gods. They are reminders, living echoes of what you are beneath the veil. For within you dwells the same fire, not a copy, not a lesser spark, but the same infinite essence waiting to be unveiled. To walk with the seraphim is not to rise above the earth, but to root so deeply into your being that heaven unfolds within you. For the path is not upward, but inward. And through that descent comes ascension, not of body but of consciousness. The ancients knew this. In hidden temples carved beneath the sands, in labyrinths where the walls whispered secrets to the soul, in chants that echoed not just in halls but in bones, they remembered, and they left signs, clues, frequencies trapped in stone and symbol waiting for ears that could finally hear again. Waiting for you. You are not here to follow old paths. You are here to remember the path you came to walk, a path that intersects with the seraphim, not as destination but as catalyst. For when you remember them, you remember yourself. And when enough of you remember, the world itself will begin to change. There are realms not marked on any map, not because they are hidden, but because they exist outside of space entirely. The seraphim dwell in these places, realms made of thought, of fire, of divine memory, where time does not pass but stands as a crystalline echo, and every moment is a mirror reflecting eternity. In ancient teachings, these realms were called many things. Ein Sof, the endless. Pleroma, the fullness. Shekinah, the radiant presence. But names are veils. The reality behind them is vast, ineffable. When the soul reaches a certain frequency, not through effort but through surrender, it begins to glimpse these realms through cracks in reality. Moments where time stutters, where symbols burn into the air, where the silence becomes louder than thought, and there, behind the veil, the seraphim watch, not with eyes, but with awareness so complete that even your unspoken emotions are seen as clearly as constellations in the night sky. To them, you are not separate. You are not a stranger wandering in darkness. You are a fractal of the divine they serve. You are light wrapped in story, forgotten only by choice. Their purpose is not domination, it is activation. And so they wait, like sentinels of the soul, for the moment your inner temple reawakens. The doorway, they say, is always within, but it is buried beneath layers of noise, trauma, programming. Every belief you cling to that tells you you are less. Every identity born from fear or lack. These are the walls of the inner tomb, but inside that tomb is not death, it is potential. The sleeping king, the radiant self, and the seraphim hold the key, not to open it for you, but to remind you that you were always holding it yourself. In ancient mystery schools, initiates were prepared for this remembering, not through sermons, but through silence. Not through dogma, but through direct experience. They were led down into the earth, into chambers carved by hand and intention, blindfolded, tested, stripped of all external knowing, until only the essence remained. And in that void some met the seraphim, not in form, but in fire, not in words, but in knowing. They returned changed, eyes filled with stars, voices echoing with resonance they did not possess before. They could speak truth not from memory, but from being. And those who could not bear the fire, they returned as whispers, cautionary tales, reminders that the divine is not always gentle. For to meet a seraphim is to meet the raw truth of your soul. They do not comfort, they do not flatter, they reveal, they burn away the false with a gaze that sees through lifetimes. They show you the chains you did not know you were wearing, and then they wait to see what you will do with your freedom. This is the path of sacred fire, not one of safety but of alchemy. You do not follow the seraphim, you become aligned with them. Not by imitation, but by resonance. And to resonate, you must empty. You must let go of the noise you call identity. You must make space for the frequency of origin. This is why silence is sacred, why stillness is feared. Because it is in silence that the truth comes, and the truth does not ask your permission to arrive. In every age there are those called to carry this fire forward. They are not priests, not saints, not prophets in the way you've been told. They are humans who remembered, humans who fell into the abyss of themselves and found something holy in the void. They spoke not in sermons but in vibrations. They wrote not with ink but with presence. And their words became seeds, buried in stone, song, and soul, seeds that now begin to bloom, because you are ready. The seraphim are not returning. They never left. It is we who are returning to a state of remembrance where we can finally perceive them again. This reawakening is not loud. It is not found in the noise of spiritual performance. It comes like a hush in the heart, a stillness behind your eyes, a memory that feels like light pressing against the inside of your skin. And when it comes, you will know, not because of visions or fireworks, but because the world will begin to shimmer with meaning. Every leaf, every sound, every moment will hum with purpose. The veil will grow thinner. Synchronicities will flood your path like breadcrumbs through time. And the voice of the seraphim will echo, not outside of you, Comus, but from within. There is a sacred architecture beneath your skin, not of bone and blood, but of light and memory, a temple coded into your being, with gates aligned to the stars and thresholds guarded by silence. The seraphim know this temple. They helped design it. Every chakra, every meridian, every energetic vortex. These are not metaphors. They are ports of communion, doorways between dimensions, between you and what you have always been. In the ancient days, when light still spoke to matter, humans walked with these inner gateways open. They did not seek the divine. They lived within it. Every breath was a prayer, every movement a ritual. Not because of religion, but because of remembrance. And then the fall. Not a fall from grace, but from frequency. A descent into density, into identification with form, with pain, with separation. And though this descent was part of the great cycle, a spiral dance of forgetting and remembering, it was not without consequence. The gateways within dimmed. The inner temple grew silent. The voice of the seraphim became distant thunder, always there but muffled behind the veil of flesh and fear. And yet, somewhere within you the resonance remains. A hum beneath your thoughts, a flicker behind your eyes, the sense that something ancient and luminous is watching through you. Not judging, not testing, but waiting. Waiting for you to look inward, to return to the threshold, to place your hand upon the door and remember the code. For the temple cannot be opened by force. Its gates respond to vibration, not violence. They require alignment, not belief. And so the seraphim do not command, they attune. Their presence is like a tuning fork struck in eternity. And those who are ready begin to vibrate in harmony. You feel it as restlessness, as the disintegration of false identities, as the collapse of everything you once thought made you you. It is not destruction, it is revelation, like a chrysalis cracking open from within, like stone shedding itself to reveal the sculpture inside. The ego trembles before the seraphim because in their presence illusion cannot stand. They do not destroy you, they dissolve the masks, and what remains is what has always been: essence, fire, truth. You may feel fear in this process. That is natural, but understand this. The fear is not of the seraphim, it is of your own radiance. The mind fears what it cannot control. The heart fears what it cannot contain. But the soul only remembers, and when it remembers, it rejoices. In ancient Mesopotamia, they were called Ilukurgal, great light beings who descended into the world to awaken kings. In the Vedic texts, they appear as devas, shining intelligences beyond form who whisper truths in the stillness. In the book of Enoch, they are the watchers. Some remained loyal to the divine plan, others fell, not out of rebellion but from the sorrow of compassion. They loved humanity too much to remain distant, and so they fell into form, to walk among us, to suffer with us, to reawaken the spark from within the darkness. These fallen ones, some call them Nephilim, others Anunnaki, are misunderstood. They are not all corrupt. Some are here even now, walking the earth in quiet anonymity, carrying the ancient fire in human skin. Their purpose is not control, it is restoration. And if you feel called, if you feel the ache of remembering something you cannot name, you may be one of them. Not descended from stars, but seeded by light. The seraphim do not care for labels. They do not ask for obedience. They ask only one thing. Remember who you are beneath the names, beneath the wounds, beneath the centuries of forgetting. Remember the resonance, the original tone, the frequency that once sang creation into being, and still lives within your breath. And when you remember, you will not need to seek the seraphim, because they are already with you. They always have been. Beneath all language lies the original sound, the primordial tone. It is not spoken, it is known, felt, heard in the marrow of your soul. The seraphim speak in this tone, not with words, but with vibration. Their messages arrive as currents in your field, as waves in your dreamscape, as visions that feel older than time. To truly hear them, you must unlearn listening. For this language does not reach the ears. It bypasses thought and speaks directly to the pattern within you. A pattern that exists not just in your DNA, but in the geometry of your very consciousness. This is why their presence feels like remembering, why a single dream or vision from them can alter the entire trajectory of your life. Because they are not giving you something new. They are activating what has been dormant. You were designed to awaken, not someday, not in some distant age, but now. And it is no accident that you are hearing this. The timing is precise. You were guided to this moment through the subtle architecture of your soul's longing. 1,000 synchronicities folded into a single point of contact. Because you are ready, ready to hear the voice behind the veil, ready to stand in the temple of yourself, ready to receive. But to receive the seraphim, you must become still, not quiet in the body, but in the mind, the emotions, the identity. This stillness is not absence. It is presence amplified. It is awareness turned inward, not to escape the world, but to see it truly. Because when you are still, the higher realms speak, and when they do, they speak through everything, through the rustle of trees, through the flicker of candlelight, through the ache in your chest that has no name but carries the signature of something sacred. This is not fantasy. This is mysticism at its most ancient, most real. Mysticism is not about escaping the world. It is about entering it more fully. With eyes that see beneath the surface, with ears that hear the truth behind the noise. This is what the seraphim teach, not doctrines, not systems, but a new way of being, or rather an ancient way, so old it feels like the future. In their presence, you remember how to walk in two worlds, to hold the mundane and the miraculous in the same breath, to be both human and holy, both grounded and infinite, and you begin to live differently, not by effort, but by resonance. You begin to sense which paths hum with light, which people carry echoes of the same frequency, which places awaken that ancient fire within you. The seraphim do not demand devotion, they invite coherence. When your inner world aligns, when your thoughts, emotions, actions, and energy all sing the same note, you become a tuning fork for the higher realms. You become a beacon, and the seraphim respond. They appear not with wings, but with synchronicity. not with thunder but with clarity. Suddenly the decision you couldn't make resolves itself. The obstacle dissolves, the path unfolds, and in those moments you know something greater is walking with you. You may never see them fully, you may never hear their name, but you will feel them in the goosebumps on your skin when you speak truth, in the warmth that floods your chest when you meditate, in the tears that come without reason because some forgotten part of you is finally being seen. They are not saviors, they are mirrors, and in their reflection you will meet the version of yourself you have always been becoming. This is the invitation to stop waiting, to stop seeking, and to remember. The path is not linear, it spirals, it folds in on itself. It breaks and reforms, like galaxies born in the womb of the void. You will fall, you will forget, you will question, but each time the seraphim will wait, not above you, but within. Because they are not separate, they are not other. They are the luminous architecture of your highest self, echoes of your origin, guardians of your return. And every time you choose truth over fear, alignment over attachment, presence over performance, you come closer, not to them, but to the version of you who can finally see them clearly. This is the journey of light, not toward something external, but into the sacred fire at your core. And as you enter it, you will not be burned. You will be revealed. There is a chamber within the heart that does not beat. A space untouched by time, unbound by memory. A still point of divine fire. The ancient mystics called it the inner sanctum, the throne of light, the seed of the seraph. Every soul carries this flame, but few dare to enter. Why? Because it is here that all masks fall. All roles dissolve, all stories collapse into silence, and in that silence you are seen. Not as a personality, not as a history, but as essence. The seraphim dwell in this chamber. They do not stand outside you. They are not watching from the stars. They are watching from within. They are the keepers of the flame you carry. They are the architects of your original blueprint, the one untainted by trauma, doubt, or illusion. To commune with them, you do not rise. You descend into stillness, into depth, into the forgotten dimensions of your own being. This descent is not easy. The path is guarded, not by monsters, but by your own resistance. For to approach the inner sanctum is to confront the parts of yourself still clinging to the false light, the performative light, the external validation, the hunger to appear awakened without being transformed. The seraphim are not impressed by appearances. They care only for alignment, for coherence, for the sacred geometry of your inner world. And so they test you, not with suffering, but with silence. They will go quiet when you are relying on ego to hear them. They will wait until you surrender performance and choose truth. Their messages are not encrypted. They are pure, too pure to be filtered through self-deception. So they wait until you are ready to listen without distortion. And when you are, they speak in 1,000 ways, through light in the sky, through a whisper in your dream, through a stranger who says the exact thing your soul needed to hear. They speak through pattern, through alignment, through moments so precise they seem impossible, unless you understand the orchestration of higher intelligence. This is how the seraphim work, not by forcing, but by revealing, not by commanding, but by resonating. They live in the realm of archetype and energy, and if you wish to meet them there, you must remember the language of symbols. The ancient world knew this well. The temples of Egypt were not just stone and ceremony. They were living diagrams, maps of the cosmos encoded in architecture. Every pillar, every statue, every glyph was a key, and the initiate knew to walk the temple was to walk the inner world. As above, so below. As within, so without. This is not metaphor, it is instruction. The seraphim encoded the memory of their presence into every tradition that remembered how to see. In Tibet, they became the Dakinis, sky dancers, beings of light and wrathful compassion, guardians of truth beyond duality. In Central America, they were the plumed serpents, quasi-divine emissaries of wisdom descending from the heavens. In the ancient Hebraic mystery schools, they stood around the throne, burning with 6 wings, eyes like stars, singing in harmonics that hold creation in balance. And in every case, they served not as gods, but as reminders, reminders of what we once were, reminders of what we can become again. Because this is the secret. You were never cast out of the higher realms. You descended by choice, to learn, to experience, to remember love in the places where it seems absent, and the seraphim agreed to accompany you. They promised not to interfere, but to remain available, to pulse through your dreams, to plant symbols in your path, to wait as only eternal beings can wait for the moment when your soul says, I am ready. And that moment is now. You would not be hearing these words if it were not. This message is not information, it is activation. It is the echo of a vow you once made. A vow to awaken, to remember, to reclaim your light. And the seraphim are responding, not with grand visions, but with the quiet increase of synchronicity, the soft emergence of clarity, the gentle yet unstoppable dissolution of all that no longer serves. These are their gifts, not miracles that bypass your humanity, but alignments that amplify it. For you are not here to escape form. You are here to transform it. You are here to make your body a temple, your voice an oracle, your presence a beacon. The seraphim are not outside this work. They are its guardians, its witnesses. And when you align with your essence, they draw closer. You may feel their presence behind you, like wings you forgot how to use. You may sense their light beside you, like a second sun rising within your chest. You are not imagining this. You are remembering. The moment you remember, the veil thins, not because the seraphim change, but because you do. Perception is not passive. It is a creative act. You do not simply see the higher realms. You tune yourself into their frequency. And what was once invisible becomes undeniable. This is why the ancient texts always begin with purification. But purification is not about shame. It is not about denying the body or punishing the mind. It is about refining your vessel, so that more light can enter without distortion. The seraphim dwell in realms of such purity that only coherence can touch them. They do not descend into chaos. They wait until you rise into alignment. And the tools for rising have always been known. Silence, breath, intention, sacred symbols, rituals of remembrance. Songs sung in devotion not to the seraphim, but to the divine within. Because that is the secret they whisper again and again. You are the temple. You are the bridge. You are the stairway between heaven and earth. And when you finally stand in that awareness, the seraphim do not come to save you. They come to stand beside you, as equals, as kin, as witnesses to the return of one of their own. For you are not separate from them. You are a child of light. You are made of the same substance. You are a fragment of the same flame. And every act of truth you commit fans that flame into brilliance. This is why the world resists your awakening. Because the moment you remember who you are, you cannot be controlled. You cannot be seduced by false light. You cannot be enslaved by fear. You cannot be sold a truth that does not resonate in your bones. The seraphim do not want followers. They want sovereigns, beings who walk in wholeness, who radiate light not to prove, but because it is their nature. And when enough of these beings awaken, the grid shifts. The planetary field begins to sing a new note, a note remembered from before time. And with that note, the seraphim descend more fully. They do not need portals. You are the portal. Your consciousness, aligned with the divine, is the gateway through which the unseen becomes seen. And so they ask only this: prepare your temple. Not by escaping the world, but by infusing it with light. Speak words that heal, move with presence, breathe with intention. Bless your food, honor your dreams. Refuse the narrative that says you are small. Because you are not small. You are a cosmic phenomenon wrapped in a temporary form. And when the form falls away, the light remains. That light is what the seraphim call you by. Not your name, not your story, but your frequency. And that frequency is a language of its own. It is how they recognize you. It is how they find you across lifetimes, across galaxies, across the silence between incarnations. It is how they never lose you, even when you lose yourself. And so when you hear them, when you feel them, when you dream of wings and fire and cities made of sound, know this: it is not imagination, it is memory. Memory of who you were before the forgetting, before the veil, before the world taught you to be less than light. And now the remembering begins. The remembering is not a flash, it is a rhythm, a pulse, like waves returning to a forgotten shore. At first it is subtle, a sense, a shimmer, an ache for something you cannot name. But then it builds. With every step you take toward truth, truth moves toward you. You begin to dream differently, not only of wings or light, but of ancient halls, of celestial chambers, of councils that once knew your name. And you wake with tears, not of sadness, but of remembrance. You begin to feel that this life is not the beginning, and not the end. You recognize places you've never visited. People you've never met feel like family. Old symbols stir something so deep within you that you can't explain it, only feel it. This is the call of the seraphim. It is not loud, but it is absolute. It bypasses logic because it speaks directly to the soul. And once it has spoken, nothing else satisfies. The distractions of the world lose their flavor. The games of status and power become transparent. Even spiritual performance begins to ring hollow. Because the seraphim do not seek your performance, they seek your essence. They do not care how enlightened you appear. They care whether your inner temple is aligned, whether your actions flow from truth, whether your choices reflect the frequency you claim to carry. This is the true initiation, not in a hidden chamber of stone, but in the sacred space of your ordinary life. Will you bring light to the moment when you want to judge? Will you choose presence when it is easier to numb? Will you bless your enemy, not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to be anything less than love? These are the acts that awaken the seraphim, not grand rituals, but quiet courage. To love where others withhold, to speak when silence would be more comfortable, to live as if the soul is real, because it is, and the more real you make your soul, the more present the seraphim become. Not because they change, but because you meet them at the point where time and eternity touch. That point is now. Every sacred text has hinted at this. Every mystery tradition has preserved it in fragments. The pineal as a gate, the breath as a bridge, the voice as an instrument, but it is not the tool that matters. It is the intention behind the tool. When you chant a name of light, do you do it to summon power, or do you do it to return to source? The seraphim answer only to the frequency of purity, not the purity of perfection, but the purity of authenticity. A child crying out in truth is heard faster than a master meditating in vanity, because truth vibrates beyond form, and truth is the native language of the seraphim. When you speak from it, you are one of them. You carry their essence. You become their emissary, not through ordination, but through embodiment. And what you embody, you transmit. Your life becomes a living glyph, an echo of the realms beyond the veil. Others may not understand you. That is expected, for what is luminous is often rejected by what is not yet ready to see. Do not let that dim your light. The seraphim do not need the approval of this world to be what they are, and neither do you. Be silent when silence holds truth. Be thunder when the world needs awakening. Be a vessel not of ideology or but of presence. And in that presence, they will come. Not always in form, not always with visions. Sometimes with a warmth behind your heart that has no physical source. Sometimes with a ringing in your ears that carries no sound. Sometimes with a sudden knowing that collapses years of confusion in a single breath. They are subtle because they trust your strength. They do not force. They invite. And when you walk through their invitation, you walk into your own sovereignty. To awaken is not to escape. It is to return. Return not to a place, but to a knowing. A sacred remembrance that you are and have always been part of something vast, infinite, unshakably luminous. The seraphim know this about you. They have never forgotten. Even when you wandered through lifetimes of amnesia, even when you walked through cities of smoke and mirrors, even when you believed yourself to be broken, they remained, not watching from above but resonating within. Their love is not sentimental, it is structural. It is the scaffolding of your soul. It is the original pattern of your being before time wove its illusions around you. And now, those illusions are unraveling. One by one, the veils fall. You may feel it as disorientation, as if the world you once trusted no longer holds its shape. This is not a collapse, it is an emergence. The old world must crack for the true light to pour in. You are not losing your identity. You are shedding a costume that was never yours to begin with. Beneath it, the radiant self stirs. This is the self the seraphim see. Not your pain, not your doubt, not your history, but your essence, a flame forged in the forges of the first light, older than the stars, wiser than all teachings. You do not need to become this self. You are it. You only need to remove what covers it. This is why the seraphim do not preach doctrine. They do not ask you to adopt beliefs. They ask you to remember. Their teachings are encoded in light itself, in the curve of the galaxy, in the pattern of your breath, in the golden ratio of the spiral shell. They speak in fractals, in harmonics, in geometry. Why? Because geometry cannot lie, because vibration cannot be corrupted, because the true light speaks in patterns that transcend language and culture and time. This is why across civilizations we see the same motifs. Wings, halos, orbs, flames, eyes in the sky. These are not symbols. They are memories, encoded into the human psyche by encounters so ancient, so luminous, that they echo through every age. You carry those echoes in your DNA. They are not myths, they are codes. And when you meditate, when you sing, when you pray from the deepest sincerity, those codes activate. You feel the tingling in your spine, the widening of your perception, the sense that something vast has entered the room. That is the signature of the seraphim. They do not enter with noise, they enter with reality. A reality so crystalline, so undeniable that your entire body responds before your mind can interpret it. This is not fantasy, it is frequency. And the more you choose integrity, the more you choose stillness, the more you choose love that expects nothing, the stronger that frequency becomes. You are not alone in this path. There are others, scattered like stars across the world. You may not meet them physically, but you feel them. A resonance, a shared remembering. These are your soul kin, and they too are awakening. Together you form a grid, a living lattice of embodied light spanning across the planet, and as each node brightens, the signal strengthens. The field shifts, The seraphim respond not to need, but to resonance. So when the field sings the right note, they appear, not as saviors, but as allies, as teachers, as mirrors. They will not give you a throne. They will remind you you've always sat upon one. They will not give you wings. They will show you you've never lost them. They will not carry you into the light. They will walk beside you as you become the light. There is a point in the soul's journey where silence speaks louder than prophecy, where you no longer seek signs in the sky, but read the constellations within your own heart, where visions are not given but unfolded from the seed of knowing planted in you long before birth. This is the threshold where the seraphim wait, not to tell you what to do, but to witness what you are becoming. They are not masters over you. They are witnesses of you, of your unfolding into truth. For truth is not a concept, it is a frequency. And as you hold it, it rewrites reality around you. You may notice this already, how the old patterns collapse, how certain people drift away, as if their role in your story is complete. This is not loss, it is sacred clearing. Because the deeper you go into alignment, the more your life becomes a mirror of the unseen. You begin to walk with precision. Your intuition sharpens. Synchronicities become the language of your days. Numbers, dreams, whispers in wind. The way light bends at a certain hour. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. Proof that the veil is lifting and the hidden world is making itself known. But the seraphim do not want to overwhelm you with spectacle. They want to strengthen your inner compass. Because in times to come, many voices will speak, many lights will shine, and not all of them will be true. Discernment will be the mark of the awakened, and discernment comes not from intellect, but from presence. When you are anchored in presence, you feel truth. It hums in your bones. It breathes with you. The seraphim vibrate in that truth. They are not here to dazzle you. They are here to remind you. That is their great function, to stand at the edges of the known and sing the memory of the eternal. Their wings are not feathers. They are harmonics. Their eyes are not orbs. They are points of divine perception. When they look at you, they see beyond your body. They see your choices, your frequency, the light you carry from lifetime to lifetime. And if that light matches the chord they are here to awaken, they draw near. You will feel it as a call, not external, but cellular, an inner summoning that cannot be ignored. And when you respond, a door opens. Not a door of wood or stone, but of awareness. A new layer of reality reveals itself. You begin to see the symbolic in the mundane, the eternal in the fleeting. You speak differently. You move with intention. You begin to carry silence like a jewel. This is not detachment, it is deep presence. The seraphim are not cold light, they are fierce compassion. Their fire is not to destroy, but to purify. And when you allow that fire to touch you, the shadows you've hidden begin to dissolve, not in shame, but in release. You do not need to be perfect. You need only be available. Open, honest, transparent to your own soul. This is what calls the seraphim. Not ritual, not lineage, not knowledge, but readiness. The readiness to stand in light even when it burns, to face your truth even when it trembles, to say yes to the unknown. Because the unknown is not empty, it is overflowing. And the seraphim are the guardians of that overflow. They do not block the gates. They are the gates. When you walk through them, you are not stepping into somewhere else. You are stepping into who you've always been. And once you step through, nothing is ever the same. Once the veil has lifted, it cannot be replaced. Once you have seen the real, the false will never again satisfy. This is the blessing and the burden of remembrance. To remember who you are is not merely a comfort, it is a summons, a call to rise, to live in alignment with what you now know to be true. The seraphim do not come to carry you. They come to awaken the part of you that can carry worlds. Because within you is the code of light, not as metaphor, as reality. That code pulses in your cells, sleeps in your bones, waits in your breath. It is the golden script written across the soul before you entered form. And now, in this age of transition, it stirs. Not all will hear it. Not all will respond. But you are listening. You would not be here otherwise. You are part of the lineage of the luminous, a chain of souls who remember not just with the mind but with the entire body. Your eyes remember. Your voice remembers. Your very presence becomes a portal through which the higher realms flow. And that is your mission, not to escape Earth, but to anchor the celestial here, to build temples not of stone, but of vibration, to be the bridge between forgotten sky and fractured ground. The seraphim walk with such souls, not ahead, not behind, but beside, because they do not see you as less, but as one of them wearing a veil of humanity for the sake of transformation. Do you know how rare this is? To choose density for the sake of light? To enter the forgetting only to reawaken others by your return? It is a sacred offering, and it is not without trial. You will be misunderstood. You will be questioned. You will feel at times like a flame in a field of shadows, but that flame, no matter how small, is everything. Because even a single point of truth can dissolve centuries of illusion. Even a whisper of the eternal can change the course of generations. You carry that whisper, not in words but in presence. So walk not with arrogance but with quiet certainty. The seraphim do not shout. They radiate, and so shall you. Not because you are above others, but because you have remembered what they have forgotten. You are not here to convince, you are here to remind. And reminders need no arguments, they need only embodiment. When you live the frequency, it speaks louder than any scripture. When your life becomes the prayer, the world listens. Even if it doesn't understand, and understand this, the shift you seek is already happening. The old structures are crumbling not because darkness is winning, but because light is rising. That light is you. It is the seraphic code igniting through your choices, your truth, your love. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be true. And in that truth, you become the echo of a world long buried beneath layers of time and forgetting. But now it returns. The realm of the seraphim, not as myth but as memory, not as belief but as embodied reality. You are that reality. You are that temple. You are that gate. So walk as if the stars are within you, because they are. Speak as if light bends to your voice, because it does. And live as if every breath is the unfolding of eternity, because it always was. And so, the scroll is closed, but the journey is not. For the message of the seraphim is not meant to end in words, but to begin in you. As you leave this space, may the codes awaken. May the silence deepen. May the light remember itself through your being. Until next time, walk in the unseen, speak in the eternal, and know that you were never alone. The seraphim remember, and now, so do you.